Hello and welcome to the e-module on Fire Systems Part 5, Emergency Procedures. At the end of the e-module, you will be able to learn about fire emergency and evacuation procedures, understand the actions required by employers and employees, know the typical fire emergency or evacuation response, know the personal protective equipment PPE to be used, understand the fire safety precautions, know the emergency lighting equipment, learn about the personal emergency kit, know the fire drills. The previous 4 parts of fire systems covered all about fire, the different fire systems, fixed and portable, along with the alarms and detection systems. In Part 5, which is the final module of fire systems, we will cover all the emergency and evacuation procedures that need to be followed in case of a fire disaster. Thus, we will learn about the disaster management policies, procedures, plans, and implementation in the event of a fire in the facility. Let's get started. Nobody expects an emergency or disaster, especially one that affects them, their employees, and their business personally. The simple truth is that emergencies and disasters can strike anyone, anytime, and anywhere, and employees could be forced to evacuate the premises when least expected. The best way to protect oneself, workers, and the business is to expect the unexpected and develop a well-thought-out emergency action plan detailing the actions to be taken in case of an emergency. Emergency response is easier when everyone knows their respective responsibilities. Establish a detailed fire emergency evacuation plan that dictates how to respond, when to respond, and identifies a path of egress. If employees have special needs or require special attention, address these details in the plan. Just drafting an emergency evacuation plan is not enough. Duties should be delegated to responsible personnel, training on action plan should be provided to all stakeholders, and mock drills should be conducted to identify the efficacy of the plan as well as to make improvement and fill gaps in the plan. A fire emergency evacuation plan is necessary for all facilities irrespective of size. For smaller premises, it could take the form of a simple fire action sign posted in positions where staff and relevant persons can read it and become familiar with its contents. And for high fire risks or large premises, a more detailed emergency evacuation plan may be required, which takes account of the findings of the risk assessment. For example, the staff significantly at risk and their location. In addition, notices or signage giving clear and concise instructions of the route to be followed in case of fire should be prominently displayed. Now let's look at what is included in the fire emergency evacuation plan and when it is initiated. A workplace fire emergency is an unforeseen situation that threatens the employees, customers, or the visitors, disrupts or shuts down the operations and causes physical damage. The best way is to prepare to respond to an emergency before it happens. Human life is of paramount importance, and hence the first decision that needs to be taken in case of a fire emergency is whether the occupants need to continue occupying the premises or do they need to be evacuated. The only way to ensure that all employees are evacuated safely is to have a clearly defined and well-practiced evacuation plan in place. An emergency action plan covers designated actions employers and employees must take to ensure occupant safety from fire and other emergencies. Now let's see what does the emergency action plan includes. A disorganized evacuation can result in confusion, injury, and property damage. When developing the emergency action plan, it's a good idea to tailor it to the work site and include all information which may help in safe evacuation of the occupants. If there is more than one work site, Each site should have a specific emergency action plan customized to reflect and include the site-specific conditions like floor plan, means of egress, etc. At a minimum, the emergency action plan must include the following: a preferred method for reporting the emergencies, an evacuation policy and procedure, a clear chain of command and designation of the person in the business authorized to order an evacuation or shutdown. An evacuation warden may be designated to assist others in an evacuation and to account for personnel. Emergency escape procedures and route assignments such as floor plans, workplace maps, and safe or refuge areas. Names, titles, departments, and telephone numbers of individuals both within and outside the company to contact for additional information or explanation of duties and responsibilities under the emergency plan. Procedures for employees who remain behind to perform or shut down critical plant operations, operate fire extinguishers, or perform other essential services that cannot be shut down for every emergency alarm before evacuating. Rescue and medical duties for any workers designated to perform them. Procedures for assisting people with disabilities or who do not speak English. Designation of what, if any, employees will continue or shut down critical operations during an evacuation. These people must be capable of recognizing when to abandon the operation and evacuate themselves. A system for accounting for personnel following an evacuation. Let's look at how the emergency exits and routes must be demarcated for proper evacuation of occupants. Dedicated fire exits and routes are made available in a building for evacuation in case of a fire. These are generally separate from the main entrance and exit of the building. When preparing the emergency action plan, designate primary and secondary evacuation routes and exits. To the extent possible under the conditions, ensure that evacuation routes and emergency exits meet the following conditions: clearly marked and well lit, wide enough to accommodate the number of evacuating personnel, unobstructed and clear of debris at all times, unlikely to expose evacuating personnel to additional hazards. An escape plan that shows closest evacuation routes and exits should be posted at multiple prominent locations for all employees to see. A sample fire escape plan is shown on the screen. In addition to the fire escape route, the plan should indicate as much information as possible to assist with the evacuation and also indicate the emergency numbers, the assembly area, location of portable extinguishers, and any other special instructions as deemed fit. An exit route includes all vertical and horizontal areas along the route and consists of the following three parts: exit access, exit, and exit discharge. We will now learn more about these terms in detail. Exit access means that portion of an exit route that leads to an exit. An example of an exit access is a corridor on the 5th floor of an office building that leads to a 2-hour fire-rated enclosed stairway, the exit. Exit means that portion of an exit route that is generally separated from other areas to provide a protected way of travel to the exit discharge. An example of an exit is a 2-hour fire-rated enclosed stairway that leads from the 5th floor of an office building to the outside of the building. Exit discharge means the part of the exit route that leads directly outside or to a street, walkway, refuge area, public way, or open space with access to the outside. An example of an exit discharge is a door at the bottom of a 2-hour fire resistance rated enclosed stairway that discharges to a place of safety outside the building. Each exit route must be adequately lit so that an employee with normal vision can see along the exit route, and each exit must be clearly visible and marked by a sign reading exit. The exit signage should be battery powered so that the same is visible even in case of power outage in the facility. Additional requirements include the following: Each exit route door must be free of decorations or signs that obscure the visibility of the exit route door. If the direction of travel to the exit or exit discharge is not immediately apparent, signs must be posted along the exit axis indicating the direction of travel to the nearest exit and exit discharge. Additionally, the line of sight to an exit sign must clearly be visible at all times. Each doorway or passage along an exit axis that could be mistaken for an exit must be marked, not an exit, or similar designation, or be identified by a sign indicating its actual use. For example, closet. Each exit sign must be illuminated to a surface value of at least 5 foot candles, that is 54 lux, by a reliable light source and be distinctive in color. Self-luminous or electroluminescent signs that have a minimum luminance surface value of at least 0.06 foot lamberts are permitted. Each exit sign must have the word exit in plain legible letters not less than 6 inches in size. Let's now look at what assembly areas are and what things should be considered before identifying and demarcating an assembly area. Predetermined assembly areas need to be arranged so as to ensure a staff count can be taken and further instructions can be passed to the occupants of the building. A consideration when selecting the location for an assembly site is to fully understand the fire emergency evacuation plan. Calculate the number of staff that would need to assemble, and if it was a multi-tenanted building, the staff strength there would also need to be taken care of. The assembly point should be far enough away from the building not to put staff in danger of radiated heat and falling debris. Give ample room so the crowd does not interfere with firefighting operations and do not jeopardize the actions of the fire service. Be close enough to ensure that the nominated person who is in charge of the assembly point can communicate with the nominated fire liaison person, who should be located near the main entrance. This could be simply talking to him directly or the use of runners or electronic communications, that is pack sets, mobile phone. The area chosen should be large enough to accommodate all the staff. If this cannot be found, consider additional sites. Open areas are ideal for assembly points. The assembly area should not be in an enclosed area and the staff should be able to disperse without the need to pass close to the premises on fire. Inclement weather needs to be considered and some form of shelter or other weather protection may be necessary, as the staff are most likely to have evacuated without collecting their out-of-doors clothing. Use of appropriate signs directing the staff towards the assembly area should leave no doubts in the minds of staff. Let's now see how an evacuation plan helps to alert employees during a fire emergency. The evacuation plan must include a way to alert employees, including disabled workers, to evacuate or take other action, and how to report emergencies as required. Among the steps that need to be taken are the following. Make sure alarms are distinctive and recognized by all employees as a signal to evacuate the work area or perform actions identified in the plan. Make available an emergency communication system such as a public address system, portable radio unit, or other means to notify employees of the emergency are available. Usually, the fire alarm system can be integrated with the public address system and set to make automated announcements. However, to prevent evacuations on false fire alarms, manual intervention may be necessary after the initial alert. Stipulate the alarms must be able to be heard, seen, or otherwise perceived by everyone in the workplace. The fire alarm system, the emergency lighting, and the public address may be configured with backup power supplies to ensure their operation during a power failure. Let's now understand why is it important to look after the employees after an evacuation. Accounting for all employees following an evacuation is critical. Confusion in the assembly areas can lead to delays in rescuing anyone trapped in the building or unnecessary and dangerous search and rescue operations. The access control system and the visitor management system should ideally be able to give a precise count of people inside the building. To ensure the fastest, most accurate accountability of all the employees, following should be considered in the emergency action plan. Designate assembly areas where employees should gather after evacuating. Take a head count after the evacuation. Identify the names and last known locations of anyone not accounted for and pass them to the official in charge. Establish a method for accounting for non-employees such as suppliers and customers. Establish procedures for further evacuation in case the fire incident becomes widespread. This may consist of sending employees home by normal means or providing them with transportation to an off-site location. Let us now take a quick knowledge check. Fire safety and response in case of fire cannot be a single man's job. The best emergency action plans include employees in the planning process. Specify what employees should do during an emergency and ensure that employees receive proper training for emergencies. An organization needs competent, trained people to help prevent a fire and also manage the situation. Fire marshals or fire wardens are nominated representatives chosen from the occupants to carry out certain tasks. The tasks may be proactive, that is fire prevention, or reactive, that is firefighting or evacuation. Let us now see what the fire warden is responsible for. Key duties of fire wardens include to assist in implementing and improving effective emergency procedures in the workplace, to help prevent emergencies by monitoring the adequacy of the fire risk control measures, to raise awareness with other staff about the fire hazards that exist in the workplace, to instruct workers in how to respond in an emergency, to lead the fire drills and real evacuation procedures. They must be familiar with all escape routes and exits from their designated area. To ensure all workers are accounted for during an evacuation. To assist all people in the workplace should an emergency occur, including assisting people with special needs, for example, helping someone in a wheelchair to evacuate. To ensure that their designated area has been cleared. If a fire is observed but the alarm has not sounded, the fire warden needs to sound the alarm through a manual call point. The fire warden is also expected to fight small incipient fires with portable extinguishers if safe to do so and if the company policy mandates or allows that. During an evacuation, fire wardens should direct everyone to leave the building using all the appropriate routes and exits and not inappropriate exits such as lifts. Check all accessible spaces in their area, including the bathrooms, to make sure everyone has evacuated. This should be done on the way out of the building so that the fire warden isn't putting himself at risk by re-entering the evacuated area. If any critical equipment which may cause collateral damage if left running needs to be shut down, the same should also be ensured. There may be a separate team doing this activity. Close the doors to help to isolate the fire. Guide everyone to the assembly area and assist in checking that everyone has arrived safely. Assist in evacuation of people with disabilities or people who do not speak the local language. Fire wardens should be provided with full authority to conduct an evacuation and the workers should know that the warden has this authority. Let us now take a quick knowledge check. Both employers and employees have certain responsibilities before and during a fire emergency entailing an evacuation. Employers. Preparation for a fire emergency. Don't lock fire exits or block doorways, halls or stairways. Test regularly all backup systems and safety systems, such as emergency lighting and communication systems, and repair them as needed. Develop a workplace evacuation plan. Post it prominently on each floor and review it periodically to ensure its effectiveness. Both employers and employees have certain responsibilities before and during a fire emergency entailing an evacuation. Employers: identify and train floor wardens, including backup personnel who will be responsible for sounding alarms and helping to evacuate employees. Conduct emergency evacuation drills periodically. Establish designated meeting locations outside the building for workers to gather following an evacuation. The locations should be safe distance from the building and in an area where people can assemble safely without interfering with emergency response teams. Identify personnel with special needs or disabilities who may need help evacuating and assign one or more people, including backup personnel, to help them. Ensure that during off-hour periods, systems are in place to notify, evacuate, and account for off-hour building occupants. Post emergency numbers near telephones. During a fire emergency, sound appropriate alarms and instruct employees to leave the building. Notify police, firefighters, or other appropriate emergency personnel. Take a head count of employees at designated meeting locations and notify emergency personnel of any missing workers. Now, let us see what actions the employees are responsible for. Preparation for a fire emergency. Be familiar with the work site's emergency evacuation plan. Know the pathway to at least 2 alternative exits from every room or area at the workplace. Recognize the sound or signaling method of the fire or evacuation alarms. Know who to contact in an emergency and how to contact them. Know how many desks or cubicles are between your workstation and 2 of the nearest exits so you can escape in the dark if necessary. Know where the fire or evacuation alarms are located and how to use them. Report damaged or malfunctioning safety systems and backup systems. Leave the area quickly but in an orderly manner following the worksite's emergency evacuation plan. Go directly to the nearest fire-free and smoke-free stairwell, recognizing that in some circumstances the only available exit route may contain limited amounts of smoke or fire. Listen carefully for instructions over the building's public address system. Crawl low under the smoke to breathe cleaner air if there is a fire. Test doors for heat before opening them by placing the back of your hand against the door so you do not burn your palm and fingers. Do not open a hot door, but find another exit route, keeping fire doors closed to slow down the spread of smoke and fire. Avoid using elevators when evacuating a burning building. Report to the designated meeting place, that is assembly area. Do not re-enter the building until directed by authorities. Let us now take a quick knowledge check. Now let's look at how a typical fire emergency and evacuation scenario will progress. Detection could be manual or through fire alarm system. If through fire alarm system, alarm will sound. If manual, an MCP will be activated by an occupant for sounding the alarm. Response: the emergency response team will assess the scenario, check the location of detector or MCP which is operated. If fire is incipient, efforts will be made to control by use of portable fire extinguishers. If not, ERT team leader will take a call as to whether evacuation is required. If evacuation is ordered, alarms will be sounded and instructions passed over the public address system. ERT team lead will also inform the local fire brigade. Lifts will be returned to ground floors and shut down. Facility personnel will shut down critical equipment if so feasible. Security personnel will collate data on number of personnel inside the facility from the access control system and the visitor management system. Fire marshals will be activated and will take charge of the floor or designated areas, guiding employees towards fire exits. Fire marshals will ensure assistance is available to staff with disabilities. They will also take rounds of accessible areas to ensure no one is left behind. Security will guard the main entrance or exit to ensure that no one uses that. Exit points will also be manned to ensure no one enters the building after the evacuation has been sounded. Staff will go to refuge or assembly areas where head count will be taken. Building will not be reoccupied till such time the emergency personnel give a clearance. In order to ensure that the proper authorities are notified of a fire when the opportunity arises, any of the following emergency numbers should be called. Please take a moment to review the chart. Let us now take a quick knowledge check. The employees in some hazardous workplaces may need personal protective equipment to evacuate during an emergency. Personal protective equipment must be based on the potential hazards in the workplace. Assess the workplace to determine potential hazards and the appropriate controls and protective equipment for those hazards. The PPE may include safety glasses, goggles, or face shields for eye protection, hard hats and safety shoes for head and foot protection, proper respirators, chemical suits, gloves, hoods, and boots for body protection from chemicals, special body protection for abnormal environmental conditions such as extreme temperatures, any other special equipment or warning devices necessary for hazards unique to the work site. Fire and emergency exit doors. Are the fire doors able to be closed automatically? Fire doors must be able to close automatically after use to prevent fire from entering the fire evacuation stairwell. Check for evidence of any tampering on the automatic door closer. Are the fire doors in a closed position? Fire doors must remain closed to prevent fire from entering fire evacuation stairwell. It should not be wedged open by any object that prevents the door from shutting. Are the fire doors and emergency exit doors obstructed? Access to the emergency exit door must not be blocked with items, especially bulky and or combustible items. A clear pathway is required for fire evacuation. Are the fire doors and emergency exit doors able to be opened manually without the use of a key or a special tool? The emergency exit doors must be able to be opened without the use of any keys or special tool. Where the door is required to remain EM locked for security reasons, there must be a mechanism on site to de-energize the automatic door lock in case of a fire. Fire evacuation staircases. Are the fire staircases obstructed? The fire staircase must not be blocked with items, especially bulky and or combustible items. A clear pathway is required for fire evacuation. Is there any storage of unauthorized items in the fire staircase? There must not be any storage of items in the fire staircase even if it is temporary. Is there any evidence of people smoking in the fire staircase? Smoking is prohibited in the fire staircase. Evidence of smoking include cigarette butts and cigarette smoke. Report offenders to their immediate manager or supervisor. Corridors and passageways. Are the fire staircases, corridors and passageways obstructed? Corridors leading to emergency exits must not be blocked with items, especially bulky and or combustible items. A clear pathway is required for fire evacuation. Is there a minimum corridor width of 1 meter? By legal requirements, there needs to be a minimum corridor width of 1 meter for human traffic. Exit signs. Are exit signs visually or physically obstructed? Exit signs have to be easily located and there must be no obstruction to see the exit sign from any location. Are exit signs in working order? Exit signs have to be functioning and powered on at all times with a backup power source. Fire extinguishers. Are fire extinguishers missing from their designated position? Fire extinguishers must be stored or mounted at their designated position and not be used for any purpose other than firefighting. Do fire extinguishers have their service date expired? Fire extinguishers must be maintained on a regular basis. Check if date of service has expired. Are fire extinguishers mounted correctly on the wall? Fire extinguishers must not be mounted at a height higher than 1.5 meters, placed on the floor or with hook missing. Are fire extinguishers visually or physically obstructed? Fire extinguishers are used for immediate action on small fires and have to be easily located, and there must be no obstruction to the access of the fire extinguishers. They must not be locked up. Is there any storage of unauthorized items in the fire extinguisher cabinet? There must not be any storage of items in the fire extinguisher cabinet, even if it is temporary. Hose reels. Do hose reels have their service date expired? Hose reels must be maintained on a regular basis. Check if date of service has expired. Are hose reels visually or physically obstructed? Hose reels have to be easily located and there must be no obstruction to the access of the hose reels. They must not be locked up. Is there any storage of unauthorized items in the fire extinguisher cabinet? There must not be any storage of items in hose reel cabinet even if it is temporary. Fire alarm system. Are main or sub-alarm panels in working order? There must be no fault or isolation indicated on the panel. Are main or sub-alarm panels visually or physically obstructed? Fire alarm panels are used to indicate location of fire within the building or floor and have to be easily located, and there must be no obstruction to the access of the panels. Are manual call points visually or physically obstructed? Manual call points are used by the general public to activate the fire alarm system in the detection of fire. They have to be easily located and there must be no obstruction to the access of the manual call points. Smoke detectors and sprinklers. Is there a clearance space below the smoke detector or sprinkler? There must be a clearance space of at least 50 centimeters below the smoke detector or sprinkler in order for it to operate effectively. Are there any visible signs of damage or tampering on the smoke detectors or sprinklers? Check for signs of damage to the smoke detectors or sprinklers. Ensure that there are no items hanging onto sprinklers. Electrical hazards. Do electrical appliances have the ISI label? Approved electrical appliances for use within India. Are there any frayed electrical cords or wires? Potential fire hazard. Are there any faulty or broken switches or power outlets? Potential fire hazard. Is there improper usage of adapter or power strip or extension cord? Potential overloading leading to fire hazard. Is there overloading of electrical outlet? Potential fire hazard. Housekeeping and storage. Flammable or combustible substances must be kept in proper storage containers away from possible source of ignition and sabotage. Others. Is the fire emergency plan updated and readily available for reference? This is very important for effective handling of the fire and evacuation. Let us now take a quick knowledge check. Let us understand what is emergency lighting. Sometimes referred to as egress lighting, emergency lighting is designed to illuminate and identify hallways, stairwells, and exits to facilitate a safe and orderly evacuation from a facility. Emergency lighting is generally required in all commercial, industrial, educational, religious, institutional, public housing, medical, and many other facilities, whether for profit or non-profit. Emergency illumination, when required, must be provided for a minimum of 1.5 hours in the event of failure of normal lighting. The emergency lighting must be arranged to provide initial illumination of not less than an average of 1 foot candle, that is 10.8 lux, and a minimum at any point of 0.1 foot candle, that is 1.1 lux, measured along the path of egress at floor level. Ensuring that emergency exits in the building are clearly marked with exit signs can reduce confusion and injury in the event of an emergency. A few examples are shown on the screen. You must be wondering, in case of fire, what personal emergency kit is used. Let us have a look at that. In order to assist staff in case of fire emergencies, they may be issued with a personal emergency kit which may include a face mask, a whistle and a safety light stick. The emergency evacuation plan should be the subject of frequent training so all employees are familiar with its contents, and there should be regular evacuation drills. Importance of fire drill. It is recommended to carry out this fire training drill every 6 months, and it is further recommended that a record be kept of the results of that training. This will assist in tracking the corrective and preventive actions as also required to prove the conduct of drills and actions in the future. The fire emergency evacuation plan must be included in the instruction and training to be given to the employees. Effective fire routine is dependent on regular instruction, training, practice, etc. Regular drills should be carried out using varying escape routes, assuming the normal evacuation route is not available. Let us study why fire drills are important. There are several reasons why fire drills are important. Fire drills are an opportunity to practice evacuation procedures to make sure all staff are familiar with them. They get staff used to exiting a building quickly, and therefore in a real-life situation, panic will be reduced as everyone will know what they need to do. Fire drills are also useful for testing escape routes to evaluate their effectiveness. During fire drills, checks can also be carried out on alarm systems to ensure they are working correctly and that emergency exits are unobstructed. Overall, fire drills help improve safety so that all are best prepared if a real fire does occur. Before a drill, following is to be conducted by supervisory staff or maintenance personnel. Contact the fire alarm monitoring company and advise them of the upcoming fire drill. Ensure to supply the monitoring company with the estimated timeline to conduct the fire drill. Contact the local fire department and the landlord and inform them of the planned drill so that they are not activated due to the drill. For initiating a fire drill, if there is a fire drill feature on the panel, then utilize this feature to activate alarms for the purpose of the fire drill. If not, then activate the nearest manual pull station. Record the time from the activation of the fire alarm to the evacuation of all staff and visitors. During the fire drill, supervisory staff are to monitor the evacuation process and note the following. Are individuals closing the doors upon exiting rooms? Are individuals remaining calm and proceeding towards the nearest exit? Are individuals assembling at the designated muster point? Did the equipment integrated with the fire alarm system like lifts, AHUs, access control doors, etc. operate as planned? Are fire wardens, if applicable, ensuring the safe evacuation of all individuals? Are all individuals being accounted for, if applicable? Are exits guarded to prevent re-entry into the building? After the fire drill, record the total evacuation time in the evacuation checklist report. Silence the alarms, reset the manual pull station and reset the fire alarm system. Ensure the fire alarm system is back to normal operating condition. Inform individuals that they can re-enter the building. Contact the fire alarm monitoring company and the local fire brigade to advise that the fire drill is complete. Re-evaluate any concerns that arose during the fire drill and discuss as a group, for example, safety meeting. Keep record of the fire drill and any notes on the evacuation checklist report. Initiate corrective or preventive action plans against the observations recorded. Please take a moment to review emergency information. Congratulations! You have now completed this e-module on Fire Systems Part 5 Emergency Procedures. In this e-module, you learned the following: Introduction to Fire Emergency and Evacuation Procedures, Employer and Employee Actions, Fire Emergency or Evacuation Response, Personal Protective Equipment (PPE), Safety Precautions, Emergency Lighting, Emergency Kits, Fire Drills,